Welcome to another video. Our previous video introduced the Bayesian updating framework and presented some nice, neat, and compact recursive formulas for how the beliefs are updated, and also discussed the implications of assuming this approach. Bayesian updating works especially well when we have a continuous signal, but in this video I wanted to talk about some departures from the easiest case, when things might get a little messy with discrete signals or censored information and so on. And I also wanted to talk about how Bayesian updated is employed in other domains outside of economics. And I think you'll have an appreciation for how much this approach to the world is actually present all around you. So let's start by thinking about why the continuous signal case is so special and what we lose if we depart from it. And Bayesian updating is very popular because of the nice, clean math that it produces in terms of the structure of the formulas and the recursive nature of the updating. And the main reason why it works out so cleanly is because of a concept known as a conjugate prior. And you can look that up on Wikipedia if you want to learn a little bit more about that. And the idea here is that if we assume a different kind of updating, the math can get ugly pretty quickly. But the fundamental properties of Bayesian updating are intuitive in terms of people being uncertain, never quite getting enough information to have complete certainty, and so forth. And the critical reason why we might assume Bayesian updating is because we actually don't know what the people believe, because we didn't get data on their beliefs, but we still want to quantify how much uncertainty they could reasonably have about the decisions that they're making. So another approach that people have taken, which is related to the stated preference approach, is to actually elicit beliefs in a survey and observe how people update their beliefs as new information arrives, and then use that to test if their belief updating is consistent with the Bayesian framework. So this is very similar to getting preference heterogeneity distributions from a stated preference survey and then comparing that with mixed logit, random coefficients logit estimates of the same setting. So a lot of the structure that we're imposing on the problem is because of a lack of data. And hopefully by now you've kind of appreciated that with identification comes assumptions, and we can make richer models if we have richer data. So what happens if we depart from the continuous signal framework? Well, if we have a discrete signal, let's suppose a pass-fail grade instead of a numerical score on an exam, well, naturally, the pass-fail is going to provide less information because I don't know by what margin the person passed the exam. And so that's going to complicate how I could use that information to update in either a Bayesian or a non-Bayesian manner. Another complication is if people get to choose which signals they receive. So you could think about this in terms of labor supply. If I'm using wages as a signal of my productivity in the labor market, then if I'm using data on people who have jobs, that might distort what the true distribution in the population of that employment productivity is, because presumably the least productive people would find it better to engage in home production than labor market employment. And in this situation, we would need to combine our learning model with a discrete choice framework to quantify the impact of beliefs about ability on labor supply and how those feed back into the updating of the beliefs through the wage signals. Finally, there might be complications from censoring of the signals. And a good example here is grades in United States educational contexts. So if the grade score is 0 to 4 and someone gets a 4, you don't know if they mastered the material more than somebody else who got a 4 because maybe the exam was too easy or the grading scale was too easy. There's complaints in the US context that grading has become more lenient over time, and so that's providing students with less information about their own abilities. Let's shift gears and talk about something called the Kalman filter, which is a special type of Bayesian updating of a learning model. And this is used a lot in engineering contexts, and in particular to remotely sense aircraft or spacecraft. The idea is that I have a lot of satellites in the air or sensors throughout the world, and any given sensor might give me a noisy signal about the position of this aircraft or spacecraft. But if I combine the information from multiple sensors simultaneously, then that will provide me some information to triangulate the position of the craft. Another application of this Kalman filter is in rating player skill or team skill in chess or video games. There's often a leaderboard where the best player in the world has the highest score on this ranking metric. But the idea that we bring into this from learning models is that there might be some uncertainty about who is the best player because they've only played so many matches, or they haven't accumulated enough skills. Maybe they just got lucky several times in a row. They're not actually that skillful. And so the Kalman filter and this, combining this rating system with concepts about the Kalman filter and learning models will allow you to quantify the amount of uncertainty in the rankings. And that can kind of give you a sense of who's overlapping in their ability and would make for a good matchup with that person. So there's something in chess called the ELO system, and then this has been generalized to allow for uncertainty, and it's called the Glicko rating system. If you're a big chess aficionado or a big video gamer, I am neither of those. But if you are, then maybe you've come across this in your own life before now. So hopefully that gives you an appreciation for what the Bayesian approach buys us and how applicable these learning model concepts are in the broader world, even outside of economics. And in the next video, I want to generalize beyond the unidimensional learning case to think about a case where the agent is trying to learn about a vector of information instead of a scalar. This is more realistic because there's plenty of contexts where information is multidimensional and that learning about one particular dimension might have spillovers in terms of what can be learned about in the other dimension, even without directly receiving a signal about that other dimension. So lots of good stuff in the next video, and I hope that you'll join me for that one as well.